Um, Again, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our fifth solid waste work session. It's hard to believe that things are just moving along quickly. I am Stacy Rogers, Baltimore County Administrative Officer, and have the pleasure of chairing the Solid Waste Work Group for those of you who are just joining us for the first time. On behalf of County Executive Olszewski, we extend greetings to our work group members and also members of the public who are joining us to view our meeting session today. Before we begin, I would like to remind everyone of a few housekeeping items regarding our meeting. This work group meeting is being recorded. Materials we will review today were shared with group members via email by Jennifer earlier this week, and we hope that everyone has them to refer to. Unfortunately, the WebEx chat function is not available today. So therefore, if you have questions or feedback throughout the meeting, please send them to the county email address. We will monitor the email address throughout the meeting and address as many of the questions as possible during the meeting. Savitra will monitor that email box throughout the meeting and let us know if there are questions. Also, we've designated time throughout our session today for discussion and questions. So for work group members who are on camera, if you would like to, please raise your hands and we will acknowledge you and you can ask your questions as a part of that designated time. Last, if you have questions that you think about after our meeting, as been our process, we ask that you email the questions to the county email box. Again, that email address is solidwasteworkgroup as one word at baltimorecounty.gov. One other housekeeping note that we had asked that if you are not speaking, if you would kindly remain on mute until it is your turn to speak to reduce any background noise. I have a few acknowledgements. Again, we would like to thank the members of our work group who are also participating in the sub work group on residential collections, and which also includes hauler compensation. To Mr. Singleton, Ms. Grace, Councilmember Patoka, and Mr. Addison, we thank you for doing double duty. I am advised that the meetings continue to go well, and we look forward to hearing your recommendations at our February 18th meeting. Over the course of our past two meetings, we've received lots of information on many innovations and new things that have been presented. And today we will receive more information. Our next meeting, we will begin to focus on financing options, which is a very important topic as well. The county executive will also join us for this meeting. At our February 18th meeting, we will also receive feedback on the residential and business survey. And I'm very pleased that the survey responses are going very well. Jennifer, are you going to cover the survey responses in your remarks, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with the information that we've gathered, the feedback from the public, the feedback from our sub-work group, we will begin to identify our proposed interim recommendations. Combining what we have learned and taking into consideration the views of the community, we hope that that will help to shape those recommendations that, particularly the interim recommendations. We're going to do this in two steps. Our interim recommendations that we believe should be things that we should begin starting in July 2021 and will need funding for. These will then be incorporated. These interim recommendations will be incorporated into our larger report, but we must identify certain things now to share with the CE for his consideration so that they can be included in the FY22 budget. Then our longer term recommendations that may span across the 5 years of our plan, we will work on as well. Our final report will be presented to the CE in mid-April. Again, interim report in March with our short-term recommendations for the CE's consideration, and then longer, and all recommendations will be incorporated into our final report in April. Additionally, I would like to thank those of you who've helped us to promote the survey, and we continue to ask that you do that, particularly with the business community. We are definitely making good progress, but our goal for the business community is 300 responses, and we're not quite there as we are with the progress with the residential survey responses. That Jennifer will give you the update and the data on that. Today's meeting will continue our discussion on best practices and our focus on diversion, outreach, and policy changes. Our discussions together are the initial steps to building our plan. We are in the process of gathering input from our various presentations, and our goal is to share what we've discussed, and in upcoming meetings, know that the recommendations that we begin to formulate are a combination of all of the work and information that we have been provided, and we want you to take that into consideration as we begin to think about recommendations. Before turning the meeting over to Jennifer, our project manager, I'd like to acknowledge and thank our presenters for joining us today. From BioHigh-Tech Global, Ms. Emily Dyson, who is the Director of Science Research and Development, and Pat Sears, Corporate Development Officer. And from Continuous Materials LLC, we welcome Bridget Luther, Director of Sustainability, and Rick Cochrane, is that correct? Senior VP for Business Development. Colleagues, thank you for joining us, and I'd like to now turn it over to Jennifer to begin our presentations.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We are focused this meeting on our topic of disposal technologies and infrastructure enhancements. And I'm going to go through the slides, the same as what you received ahead of time. We've already covered opening remarks. And in terms of the second item, which is an administrative item about the meeting number 4 notes and files that were sent, are there any comments or questions on that? Okay. And again, we are monitoring the email piece regularly for any updates. And part of what you received last week was our responses to any of the emails that came in, as well as the meeting notes itself. So everybody should have that. I wanted to say, on terms of updates, another item that came through to the group since our last meeting is the finalized background memo, as well as a response document that we sent with everybody's feedback and how it was incorporated and addressed in the document. So let us know any questions on that. But thank you really so much from the entire GBB team and the whole project team to the work group's input on that, and really appreciate that as our foundation for the project. I wanted to say on the digital survey, online digital survey, as just to give you on the stats, as Stacey said, we're having huge success in terms of the respondents. I have on the business side, as Stacey noted, the last count is that we are about a third of the way toward our goal of 300 on the business side. So I know the county's been working on reaching out through the Chamber of Commerce and other listservs on that. So for the business surveys, we still have a few weeks here to push on that. It's open through February 7th. And so we have some time, but on the residential side, I'm so happy to say we're nearly at 5,700 responses, which is much beyond what we had initially thought and beyond the neighboring surveys that we had from Montgomery County and Baltimore City. So we're really excited for the little competition going on. I appreciate everybody's efforts, and I know folks have been sending it out through your listservs, and please continue to do so. We'll have we're going to have the full report, as Stacey said, on the 18th of February, following the survey's close. I think in terms of Holler subgroup, Stacey covered that on the updates. Are there any questions on this before we move ahead? Okay. Someone flag if you see anybody moving, because I can't see everybody. Okay, we have an agenda item on backyard composting and an update for the group, and I'm going to turn it now to Mr. Mike Beeker.
Greetings all. I was told in school way back in the day when you had 8-track or 8-track tape decks and 8mm projectors that all audiovisual is demon possessed, and mine has been eaten. So you have to look at my smiling face. The county for quite a while has had a backyard composting program. And the interesting facet to that is that we sell discounted composters, plastic composters, every year or every other year. And we will have a sale coming up this year so that people can basically compost their organics in their backyard. And we highly recommend people do their grass clippings, their leaves, and whatever organics that they have other than food compost in their composter. And then reuse that for the nutrients in their yards, flower pots, whatever they have around the house. So it's basically the way that private citizens can do their own composting in their own backyard. We also support that with a lot of handouts and websites in our website that tells them exactly how to do that. It's been a great success. And the thing that I would like to point to the most of all is every year for the last 20 years, we've gotten 10 to 12,000 tons of compost in our curbside yard material program. It really hasn't grown. And the anecdotal evidence is that more and more people through the purchase of the bins have been doing that and doing it privately instead of relying on us to do it for them. So we really stress that. We make a lot of public announcements about it and go from there. We also are looking at enhancing that program by allowing the addition of food scraps, which is currently under study. And we're hoping that that coincides with what we're doing here in the 5-year tactical plan when we finish that up. So it's a very simple program. The manufacturer we found is out of Canada. And in the past, they basically brought down tractor trailer truckloads of these bins, which were sold at cost, basically in public parking lots throughout the county, usually once, sometimes twice a year. And this year, if you go to our website, they are available to be ordered now, but we have a little bit of a difference. The Amazon factor has kicked in, and instead of selling them in public parking lots at cost, you can now buy them online at cost through us, and they will be shipped directly to your home. So we tried to make this the old KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. It's been very good for us, and we've had great success with it. And so pardon the AV visual demon, But that's basically what we do. So I'll turn it back to you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you so
Mr.
much.
Beeper, I have a question for you though.
Sure.
The internal discussions have been expanding that program to include food scraps, is it not?
Yes, it has. As I
That's
mentioned.
what we need the team to know about.
Correct. Well, that is being studied. We do have a list which is under final review right now of what we can, but more importantly, what we can't add. There are certain things, and of course, there are sections of the county that has vector issues, and vectors basically are simple put rats. So it is how do we incorporate this in a neighborhoods that have these issues where that could be. So there are certain things such as animal fats and dairy products and like that we're going to recommend not be added and not allowed in the backyard composting. But the usual things like vegetables and your lettuce and that you throw away that are food scraps, we're going to have an approved and a disapproved list so that we can enhance and add that to our program.
And that's what we want to present to the team under the area of expansion of the home composting is a consideration of food scraps. We can get the information to you, the concept summary, but in our discussions of diversion, when we get ready for recommendations, we wanted you all to know about the internal considerations that were happening, and we would like to incorporate those recommendations, that consideration in with our recommendations coming from the work group.
Correct.
So it's about the expansion, the food scrap expansion, and what we'll do is do a follow-up when we send out follow-up materials. We can send you core concepts out of the decision memo that was circulated. We just thought it was a good idea that since we're working on all of the recommendations associated with solid waste changes and what we want to do, it should be part of our work as well. Any questions? All right, we'll, Jennifer, let's take that as an action item to send the core pieces of what the expansion entails and what would be prohibited, because that is incorporated in that document.
Will do. Okay. Thank you, Mike. Any questions? Nobody? Comments? Okay. So let's go ahead to our next piece, which is a discussion on and continuation of the discussion on waste and diversion. As you all know, this is the framework that we're working on in the tactical plan with our Venn diagram of less waste, and in the center, a more inclusive and livable, vibrant Baltimore County. And we continue to frame our discussions around these questions: prevention, reduction and reuse, diversion, what do we collect, how to collect, what do you do with what's left, and how do you finance? We have this working best practices for consideration piece, which by our next meeting, you will see an advancement of this. As Stacy mentioned, we're taking these concepts into the short, medium, and long-term framework right now, and also the Holler subgroup is working through that in terms of a transition recommendation, considerations for transition and long-term. So you're going to see an advancement on this next time. I don't think there's anything to note here, except we did move mattress. We kind of condensed bulk to include mattress recycling. And we also added a zero waste as its own item and EPR and product stewardship down on the bottom row. As you'll see, I'm going to hit on that in a moment also. So again, please let us know as you know what topics we've covered, what topics are coming up on the schedule, and if there's other things you want to bring to the group, please do. point here of the kind of expanded discussion for today is on the topic of zero waste and diversion. We had a comment from last time, a work group member about.
Hi, excuse me, Jennifer. Your mic is not as clear as it typically is.
Okay.
I don't know if others are having difficulty, but it's not as clear as we typically.
I'm hearing some kind of sound in the background too. I don't know if we can mute. Okay, is that better? Can you hear me okay? Okay. There was some, I think we had one sound. Okay, so in terms of zero waste and waste diversion, really want to hear from you on this as the work group and your comments. We have here the SWANA definition of zero waste, really to the definition for SWANA is to really reduce generation to nothing or next to nothing, and focuses on minimization of consumption and maximizing. The next one listed there is from Zero Waste International Alliance. Definition of zero waste meaning to conserve by all responsible means in terms of production, consumption, and then also mitigate any impacts on the environment or human health. So the zero waste framework, as we've been incorporating it into this tactical plan, we want to hear from you in terms of this concept, and then also just diversion as a definition for us in the framework here is diversion. Again, SWANA first, they're saying redirect recyclables from disposal through resource recovery. And then we have a CalRecycle there at the bottom definition of waste diversion being the combined efforts of waste prevention, reuse, and recycling. So with that, I'm going to open it up for just discussion and feedback and how you're thinking about these concepts and how we are moving ahead with the tactical plan framework, elements, and our best practices. Anybody?
I'll kick it off.
Okay.
By the way, I don't see a hand-raising function anywhere, and the lack of the chat function is extremely frustrating. It's 2021. We should be able to get that to work. My thought is this: the definitions are nice, but they're very squishy. They really don't say a lot. I don't know what excess consumption is, nor do I know how the government can actually affect consumption and lower whatever excess consumption is. And the conservation one is nice too, but neither one really say what the goal is. Are you literally going to zero waste? Or are you going to somewhere between 0 and 100? What are we shooting for? What's the real target? And it's an important question because what I've seen over the years with recycling programs is aspirational, aggressive targets that quite bluntly tend to lead more to aspirational accounting than to real achievement. I think we need to hone in on very specific targets that are realistic and achievable. There's a lot of good stuff in the benchmarking chapter, looking at what other programs have done. And the reality is it takes time and effort to get there, but it's good to know exactly what you're shooting for. And one final thought is the purpose to minimize disposal? Is the purpose to maximize recycling? Is the purpose to maximize greenhouse gas reduction? Because you really can't have it all. And I think that's something that needs to have a little bit of consideration. Those are my thoughts.
And Mr. Miller, this is Stacy. I like what you said about the goal, but I guess what we need to think about as a group is the articulation of zero waste within our narrative of the report, as well as we develop recommendations, identifying that we are indicating is a part of a zero waste effort. But I agree with, these are definitions, but what would we be doing? What under the auspices of zero waste, in terms of recommendations, what is it that we would be seeking to achieve? So what the three things that you decided, and I hope that Kitty, well, we have the recording, but I hope Kitty got those, at least defines what zero waste means to us in the context of the recommendations.
I'm going to just move ahead one. I know Sarah, I see your hand up too, Bill, but I want to just move ahead one slide. So, one slide here to say this is a GBB version of the sustainable management hierarchy, which can be a useful construct as we think about strategy in the cone. So at the top, prevent, rethink, or redesign, reduce, reuse, remanufacture. You're probably familiar with this, but we've spent some time kind of fleshing out more levels in the cone and what they mean. And the last slide before I turn it back to your group to talk, and this is what you already have in the materials, but the example strategies of zero waste under consideration for Baltimore County, we kind of basically took some of the best practices, the boxes on that previous slide, and are starting to put it into what we're been hearing about and hearing back from the group. I would just note one thing from the one that I sent, version of the PowerPoint, there's one addition, this food capture and distribution is a new item that was listed from the one you sent, but we have it broken out as reduce, reuse materials, increase recycling, and then sustainability lens for what's left, meaning these strategies and approaches, this is how this group is looking at or beginning to look at zero waste for Baltimore County as part of the tactical plan. And we listed some of the items specific under here. So with that, I'll turn it back to consideration.
But Jennifer, my point remains in terms of this concept. When we talk about zero waste, I think Mr. Miller's points were well taken, and not being someone who knows about the zero waste agenda myself, I'm interested in hearing, more as well, how we conceptualize zero waste within the work that we're doing and how that will play itself out with recommendations.
Right.
Because it's been articulated to us a couple times about what is our focus on zero waste. We've got different messages or questions about that. And so that's why we added this discussion time in terms of what zero waste means to us in the context of what we're seeking to do in building the plan.
Hey, Jennifer, it's Sarah Bixby. Hey, I'm curious where you found what you've reported as SWANA's definition of zero waste, because to the best of my knowledge, we haven't adopted anything.
Okay.
I'm not entirely opposed to what's shown here, but I just want to be clear that we do not have an official definition or an official policy that, limits things to minimizing consumption or maximizing through recycling and composting. And there's nuances in that could be problematic for a lot of our members.
It was I'm sorry, maybe I misstated the SWANA. It was from SWANA Resources Solid Waste Glossary. So SWANA's site, I guess it's not a policy statement, but it's the SWANA definition from the from SWANA's site in terms of definition.
Okay. Okay, so that's.
Yeah.
That's on me to go back and look at that then, but I think that, you know, things like, and this is where things get a little controversial, but, you know, we have not specifically said that we're opposed to or consider like waste to energy disposal. So in a local government scheme where somebody wants to look at their waste energy facility as part of minimizing land disposal, and that's how they count, you know, zero waste, because they're talking about zero waste to disposal, then we're saying they have to make up their own mind. You know, and set their own policy. And so I want to be clear that SWANA believes that zero waste is something that is very much locally driven.
Okay.
The local government has to decide what it considers its goal. If it's zero waste entirely, or if it is zero waste to land disposal, or zero waste to, you know, disposal and incineration, you know, set your own definition. And we look at that as an ongoing process, right? Zero waste isn't an absolute, we're going to get there and it never happens again. It's an ongoing process where you have to keep working on minimizing consumption and avoiding putting things into the waste stream as wasted resources, and then recycling and composting, and you know, if there are alternative technologies that come along. I mean, it is an ongoing process.
Okay. I'm gonna go back to this. Any other thought? Chaz, do you want to say anything else in response to what the group, or how you're seeing it further, or do you feel like you've covered that?
You're on mute, Chaz.
Sometimes
Oh, it went back to mute. Sorry. There you go.
it's trying to silence me.
Get in your Chaz.
No, just a quick thought on the slide that's up right now, reduce and reuse materials. Definitely food capture and distribution, definitely bulky material collection. I've seen no data whatsoever on EPR or product stewardships leading to reduction or reuse of materials. The data is just not there. It's a funding mechanism. Arguably, backyard composting, what Mike was talking about, is an excellent example of reducing, because if when I put all my yard waste in the backyard and take care of the compost pile, that means the county no longer has to worry about it. And that's been one of the most significant pieces of waste reduction in this country has been backyard composting.
Yeah.
Mr. Miller,
And grass cycling, not picking.
Thank you. Thank you, true. Very good. Absolutely.
well, Mr. Miller, and also Ms. Bixby, I would like to say thank you for at least setting a direction in how we need to think about how we address the topic of zero waste in the report and our recommendations. The collective thinking of how we should approach zero waste, because Chaz, I heard you say it's aspirational. Sarah, I heard you say it's within the realm of what local governments set and try to move toward, and it's evolving. But the bottom line is, if we look at how it fits into the concept of our Venn diagram, reduce
Less waste.
materials going into the waste stream. One of the strategies is that is in terms of increasing recycling, or just on the front end, we know that we're trying to divert, just divert things from going in. I think for the GBB team, setting that context, the language around the context of what zero waste, given the collective thinking of this group, should mean to the county is what we're going to need to do. In addition to recommendations, we have to take a position on, what does it mean to us? And I guess that's why we're asking this group for your thoughts. So if there are other thoughts that you have and you want to send that into the email address, because we're trying to get the conceptual understanding for the report as well, not just a list of recommendations, but what our position should be as a county for the county executive's consideration.
Okay. All right.
Andrea, your mic definitely is not at full volume again.
Better.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to point out the hand raising feature is at the bottom up underneath the participants' names. I know Mr. Miller was looking for it. I just wanted to give him that tidbit, that little tip.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, Jennifer, are there other thoughts or comments? Is Mr. Lafferty with us today?
Yes, I am.
Steve, do you have any thoughts, having served in the sustainability role here in the county? And again, congratulations on your move over to planning. But from the sustainability lens, is there anything that you'd like to add to the zero waste discussion before we move on?
I'm not sure at this point, Stacy. Thank you for asking. I do think it could, I tend to think more about the actual actions, and as
Right.
has already been said, what would be the elements to get us, I'm not sure I totally agree with Chaz on EPR, but that's something that can only be controlled, can't be controlled only at the local level. So that's something that's very difficult for us to incorporate unless it's a philosophy that we want the county executive to pursue in Annapolis or nationally. But what I wrote down was certainly the composting, reclamation, and reuse. Even I think in the other slide there was remanufacturers. How do you create entrepreneurial opportunities to take products that otherwise would end up in the landfill or where there's no recycling market? Obviously recyclables, and encouraging conservation, that people in fact are using less paper or less whatever they're using, not just consuming, but actually, I guess maybe as a consumer, everything is consumed. But it is aspirational because of the period of time it takes, but not necessarily unrealizable.
But is it the group's position that we do need to address this from a topical perspective in our document that begins to lay out some of the pieces that we're recommending that do fit under zero waste, the concept of zero waste, just as you're saying, but we need to also be willing to stay what we believe is a recommended good direction for the county, because we have to talk about the concept, because zero waste, as Sarah and Chaz have indicated, is a direction that a jurisdiction will go. What does that concept mean to Baltimore County? Or let me change that. What should that concept mean to Baltimore County and our actions?
Are you asking if the concept should be included or the particulars?
The concept and the particulars should be, if we're going to conceptualize it and what it means to us, then in the context of zero waste, what are the recommendations associated with it, which some we already, as we've acknowledged on that grid that we've placed as we talked about things, those things that are considered zero waste, the way they're laid out here, how those will roll into our recommendations. But I think it behooves us to say, what should as Sarah indicated, a jurisdiction has to identify their direction. It's not something that SWANA or someone else sets, but jurisdictions have to set their direction. And that was informative to me about how we should think about zero waste. So it's both things, Steve.
Mhm.
I think conceptually we should incorporate it and then probably outline those items that we think for the county will help us to achieve that.
Okay.
I mean, the part of the reality is we do incinerate right now. Whether that's something that should be eliminated, I think we still have to discuss. But that certainly, you know, I mean, this has been the second definition that Jennifer had up a moment ago. You know, it's really talking about conservation and protecting the land. Talking when incineration, you're talking about public health issues. You certainly don't want to discharge or leave materials that may cause harm or damage. I mean, that's why MDE oversees our landfills, is to make sure that we're not contaminating the waters and that, in fact, any methane discharges are addressed. So I think all of that has to be sort of built in.
Okay. See, we're trying to get the narrative part, our thoughts about the narrative, and I think Sarah and Chaz's comments are apropos about what we're going to need to say about zero waste, and then build in what you said, the things that you just mentioned, Steve, in consideration of, you know, our aspirational goal of being a healthier and, you know, effective environment. In terms of the CE's initial statements that we always go back to, those things are quite appropriate to be considered as a part of the narrative under zero waste. Thank you.
I'd be interested in hearing from some of the others as well. I know I've talked to Mr. Addison in the past. This is something that he certainly interested in. Shane Robinson, even, you know, Mr. Singleton. I mean, be good to hear from some others as to what their thoughts are as well.
Sure. This is the time that we'd ask colleagues to weigh in with your thoughts about zero waste. That's why we added it to our discussion, because we saw multiple comments about it.
Madam Chair, Chaz has his hand raised.
Okay,
So
Chaz.
I want to totally second what Steve just said. I think we do need comments from all the task force members. And if people are not yet ready to say something right now, certainly if all of us can send in emails before the next meeting about what we think zero waste is and what the appropriate goals to be reached are, I think that will be very helpful. So thank you, Steve, for saying that.
Thank you, Chaz. That was going to be our recommendation.
Shane has his hand raised, I see.
Okay.
Oh, hello. I wanted to echo what Steve and then Chaz said as well. And for my part, rather than take a bunch of time in the meeting, I'm taking notes and I'll compile it and put everything into an email, but I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. We wanted to fully, discuss this area since we saw several comments and had some questions and feedback about it. So thank you all. We look forward to receiving your feedback, and then we'll consolidate it and add a follow-up discussion for the beginning of next week. Our next meeting, the 6th meeting. Okay, Jennifer.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, before we go on, Mr. Addison, I wanted to acknowledge also has his hand raised.
Okay, Mr. Addison.
Yeah, I'll do the same. I'll put my thoughts into an email.
Mr. Addison, we can barely hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'll put my thoughts into an email.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the weeds as far as how to explain the thoughts that I have right now on the topic. So.
Okay. We'll appreciate that, and then we'll take this and consolidate the key thoughts together and feed them back to the group. So Jennifer, that's the action item that we need to add as well.
Yep. Okay, we are moving then to the next agenda item, which is the briefing memo, introduction of the briefing memo, and into our invited speakers for today. And Savitra said the screen was looking strange, so I'm not going to share for a moment. I'm going to turn it to Steve Simmons, GBB, and who's going to give us the introduction on the briefing memo and move us into the speakers, and then I'll start to share again when we get to the speaker slides.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. Just a quick mic check then. Am I coming through? Everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. Well, good morning, work group members. Excited to be back with you on this nice sunny January morning. We did send out, or when this meeting was first scheduled and kind of titled, it was just about alternative disposal technologies. As we've gotten into it, we've broadened it just a little bit to talk about even some of the conventional technologies. Not that there's going to be presentations on that today, but just from the point of view that the county's primary disposal asset today for its non-recycled waste is the Eastern Sanitary Landfill. And that landfill does have a limited life. It's not this year and next year, but it does fall within a time frame that when we're working on a 5-year tactical plan, within that 5-year period, you've got to be doing planning for the end of life of ESL, because permitting, constructing, and starting up new capacity is a period that can go on for 5 to 10 years. So it is appropriate that in the 5-year plan, you begin the process of planning for life after ESL. Now, one of the options presented in the briefing memo is expand ESL. You can go vertical. There were 2 or 3 other options. I'm not going to go through and describe them for you. I presume that people read the briefing memo, and what you're really most interested in is the presentations that we brought to you on the alternatives. And then, after the presentation, we did present questions to try to prompt some discussion. So today we're going to have presentations, as Jennifer said, from BioHitech and Continuous Materials. And we're bringing these to you because we think these are facilities worthy your consideration. In my background, I'm an engineer. I have built large waste processing plants. I have, as a businessman, I have operated them on a profit and loss basis, so I've got a pretty good feel for it. And these are 2 plants that I have personally been to. I I've done due diligence on these plans for clients, other clients, and therefore we're bringing them to you as two examples of facilities that we think are worthy of your consideration. They're not the only ones. There are others, but in a 2-hour meeting, you can only talk about so much and make it worthwhile. So these are two that we're bringing to you, and we can have discussions, and in our long-term planning, we can talk about others. But we also chose these two. They give you a little bit different flavors. One makes a fuel for use in industrial application. One makes a product. Both start with a front-end mixed waste processing plant that recovers additional recyclables, that does certain things to prepare a feedstock to make their product. So we gave you in the background, in the briefing memo, some examples of the front-end process. I won't go through those again, but if there's questions after the presentations, I'm happy to answer those. So with that, I want to go on and turn it over. If there's no questions for me right now, turn it over to our presenters. Okay, Emily. Hi.
Good morning. Thank you, Steve, and thank you to the Baltimore County Solid Waste Working Group for allowing us to come and present. Do I have control of the slides, or?
I'll do it for you.
Okay, great. Well, you can move to the first one. All right, so Refuel America is a BioHytech company. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of BioHytech. And you can actually go to the next one. A little bit about Refuel. We are a wholly owned subsidiary, and we own the technology patent for what we call the HEBIOT technology for the 11 Northeast states, and that is the high efficiency biological treatment. And we'll go into sort of what that means in some future slides. We're engaged as a company in implementing technologies to divert waste from landfills through production of alternative fuels, through reclaiming recyclable materials, through diversion of organics through our digesters, our aerobic digesters. So we've really made it a focus of our company to focus on landfill diversion, to focus on end-of-life issues for municipalities and come up with a solution. Our technology is a proven technology. There's 11 facilities throughout Europe, Africa, Asia, the UK. But the first facility is Sorga, West Virginia, which is in Martinsburg, West Virginia. It has been in operation since March of 2019. You can go to the next slide, please. So we have hired a partner recently, and you guys have I sent the wrong slide package, it looks like. So you got the edits. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Pat Sears. Pat is part of Kiln Direct, and I'm going to let him talk a little bit about Kiln Direct's relationship with BioHytech and with Sorga, West Virginia, and what our future plans are.
Oh, thank you. Can everyone hear me okay this morning? We're good?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Madam Chair Rogers and the rest of the group. I appreciate the opportunity to present and be a part of Emily's presentation to you guys this morning. As Emily mentioned, the Kiln Direct company, whom I work for, entered into an agreement with BioHytech back in the fall of this year to help with the day-to-day management, provide oversight of the operations. Kiln Direct brings 30 plus years, and unfortunately, as some of you guys have as well, I've been there for the 30 plus years of experience in this particular industry. Kiln Direct is a processor and a recycler, preparer of non-hazardous industrial byproducts. Our operations include shredding, mixing of non-hazardous materials, industrial off specification surplus products or byproducts, and miscellaneous solid and liquid materials that form a solid blended alternative fuel. In addition to that, we also recover various non-hazardous materials such as oils and other solids and semi-type solids by blending them into an alternative fuel source for cement kilns or paper mills, as a couple of examples. As examples of some of the industrial byproducts and material streams to be shredded and mixed It consists of non-hazardous fibers such as packaging materials, miscellaneous textiles, fabrics, or rubber shavings. We partners, if you will, through our agreement with Insorga, West Virginia, because our business has been being able to provide a non-haz secondary material fuel for cement kilns, lime kilns, and paper mills for the past 30 years. And when we saw what the folks there at BioHiTech were doing with the refuge, we wanted to be a partner with them to be able to help to implement our policies and procedures and programs there, to be able to help them to get their fuel into a recycle, a non-hazardous secondary material as an alternative fuel to other non-renewable type fuels. And because of that, we hope to heighten and broaden our relationship both with BioHiTech and with you guys. And we appreciate the opportunity to be involved in this project.
Thank you, Pat. And Pat's going to be able to chime in through the rest of the presentation as he needs to. To give you a little bit of an overview of the high efficiency biological treatment, mechanical biological treatment process that we go through. Basically, we take traditional mechanical biological treatment processes and we have pushed them together into a hybrid function where we have a pre-processing area where materials come in. We have a heightened separation. We have biological composting, basically a large indoor composting. From there, it goes into our refinement area where it is actually shredded, sized. We take out the metals for recycling. So the technology itself is looking at, if you go back and you think about the hierarchy, you know, we're pulling out the metals that otherwise wouldn't be recycled out of people's MSW. We are using those plastics as a reuse into a high quality, high BTU value, solid recovered fuel. The technology itself is recognized for landfill diversion rates. We divert upwards of 80% of the inbound MSW is diverted from landfills and converted into either the recyclable materials or into the SRF. You can go to the next slide. So our goals are to reprocess to create that valuable commodity. We do have a US EPA comfort letter, they call them, which basically identifies that our SRF is a non-hazardous secondary material that is a valuable fuel that can be used in various industries as an alternative to fossil fuels. We divert waste from landfills. Like I mentioned, up to 80% of our inbound volume of MSW is diverted from the landfills, and we do reclaim those usable metals. And you can go to the next slide. So what it does, again, it takes a mechanical biological process, it separates what we call the overs and the unders, overs being the large fiber, large plastics into one area. It takes the organics and the smaller fraction, and that's what ends up in what we call our biohull. And I'm going to share all this with you through some pictures here in a minute. We do not combust any waste in our process. It's all natural. We don't add any chemicals. We don't add anything to heighten that breakdown. It's all through a huge ventilation system that we enhance that drying process to create the feedstock that becomes very dry and becomes that high value BTU product. You can go to the next slide. So this basically goes through our process. We have the mechanical screening, we have the biological treatment, and that is where that ventilation system that I'm going to show you basically draws all that moisture out to create a stabilized composted material. We lose about 30 to 35% of the inbound weight off of evaporation. Then we go to the mechanical refinement. That's where the metals, PVCs, those get pulled out. We make the solid recovered fuel. Right now at Insorga, West Virginia in Martinsburg, we're averaging about 42% of our inbound material ends up as solid recovered fuel. So we're right there in the middle of where we expect to be. And then there's residuals that do end up in the landfill. There's just some things that you can't turn into fuel. But those landfill residuals, the glass, the dirt, the rocks, those all can be used for beneficial reuse as landfill cover. And we are actually sending our materials to landfills and those are being used as daily cover. Go to the next slide, please. So what are the benefits? Well, we reduce the carbon footprint. Our offtake partner from Insorgo, West Virginia in particular is Argos Cement, which is located about 2 miles from us. And their studies have shown, their analysis of our fuel has shown that we reduce the NOx as well as the carbon when our fuel, which takes about 1.75 tons of our fuel to equal a ton of coal. So when they're blending our fuel with their coal, they're seeing a reduction in NOx emissions and a slight reduction in carbon emissions. Our material can be compacted, it can be loose, it can be baled. It just depends on what the offtake partner requires. And it can be transported by truck, rail, or water. So in locations, another location that we're looking to build, possibly our second facility, has access to all 3 of those. And that increases the ability to move materials both into the plant as well as take the SRF to industrial users that can use it, you know, in farther distances. Go ahead. So who we look to as our industrial partners, certainly the cement industry. The cement industry has a long history of using refuse-derived fuels, of using solid recovered fuels, alternate fuels, lime kilns, cogen power plants, steel mills. There's a variety of the paper mills. Pat mentioned that Kiln Direct is working with paper mills. So there's a lot of opportunity, and a lot of that opportunity is right here in Baltimore County. Certainly cogen power plants, steel possibilities, as well as the cement industry that's located, you know, 30 miles outside of Baltimore County and Carroll County. There are some opportunities potentially there as well. So we see that there's a bright future for the use of SRF. I think that from a political climate standpoint, I think there are pushes to evaluate the use of alternate fuels like ours from an environmental standpoint, from a landfill diversion standpoint, that I think will be a real strong advocate for us. Next slide. So who is this technology right for? The counties, the states, and the municipalities is really a big focus for us. It reduces landfill capacity. For counties like yours, where Eastern Sanitary Landfill is going to be looking at end-of-life issues, a heavy yacht facility becomes a renewable landfill for you, basically. There are materials that we can't take that still would require landfilling. You know, those bulk items that after you've gone through and you've recycled what you could, being able to take those items and put those in the landfill. There are other items. So it's not like you're taking away landfills in total, because I know that that's an issue. There's business opportunity there, but it's an alternative to work together. We achieve more sustainable and modern waste management systems when we start looking at new technologies. Waste in the US has been managed the same way for decades. And this is an opportunity for us to step ahead. Europe has already proven out these technologies, and it's time that we start looking at how we can use existing technologies and incorporate them into our waste management strategies. It does increase the recycling rate. In Berkeley County, where our facility is located, we have seen an uptick in the recycling rates for metals in particular that we've been able to pull out of the waste stream that otherwise would not have been collected. Most of those metals are in people's MSW because they're not in support of the recycling, the drop-off recycling programs or the pickup programs. So they're recycling whether they know it or not. It does create some construction jobs, some operations jobs, and it does improve work conditions. We are a fully automated process. There's no exposure to foul odors. We have a ventilation system and a biofilter that eliminates those odors. And we reduce worker exposure to waste. You know, guys that are doing maintenance may need to be in the refinement area where it's been stabilized. But other than that, there's very little exposure. As far as private landfill operators, we can coexist with a landfill, especially if you have limited landfill capacity. If you need to extend the life of your landfill, like I said, we become that renewable landfill for you. And then hauling companies that are seeking alternatives to landfilling. For many organizations are looking for that zero landfill alternative. And for hauling companies, this becomes just another service offering. The beauty also, the feedback at least that we're getting in Sorga, West Virginia, is that it reduces the maintenance cost on hauling trucks because we're a clean, there's no odor facility. And so things like nails in tires, glass in tires, transmission issues from, bumpy landfill roads, a lot of those things have been reduced for Apple Valley Waste, who is our hauler. So there's some positives there as well. The drivers certainly much prefer our facility to go into the landfill. Next. So the first U.S. facility was in Martinsburg. These are the reception doors as you first come in. We began receiving fuel on March 29th of 2019, and our first fuel was made on May 10th. We are designed to bring in 110,000 tons per year of MSW, as well as commercial and industrial non-hazardous secondary materials. This is probably going to be the smallest of the facilities that we build. Our goal is to focus on the 110,000 to 300,000 ton facilities going forward. Can you go to the next one? Can you hit the play button? This is a 30-second thereabout video. Oh, we don't have sound to it. That's okay. I'll talk you through it.
Yeah,
So
I can do it. I just have to, let me just see if I can play I might not be able to actually. I'll just hit play.
Right. Don't worry
Okay.
about it. Let me
Okay.
talk through it. So we have the inbound trucks coming in. They dump into reception pits. From our control room where it's fully automated, everything is monitored off of the screens. Waste goes into the pits, 26-foot deep pits. Can hold about 3 days worth of waste. We have 2 automated overhead cranes that move the material from the reception pits into a hopper that goes to a trommel. Having a rough time moving it here. So this is the feed line to the unders pit. That's where I was saying that's the small fragment that goes to the biooxidation hall. Biooxidation hall holds about 4,500 tons of MSW. It's there for 10 to 14 days before it moves. This is the fines, the residual that we talked about. This is our optical sorter, which is taking out PVC plastics because chlorine is an issue as fuel. We have several magnets throughout the plant that take out those metals. And that's the final SRF being loaded into the trucks. And that should give you kind of an overview. We take about 19 to 20 tons into a trailer. This is the ventilation system that's at the back of the property that basically is pulling air out of the biooxidation hall and through the biofilter. The biofilter is made up of mulch, varying sizes of mulch, from bigger than firewood down to shredded materials. The air can filter through that filter. You can see in the background on your left is actually Argos. That's their kiln. So if you can go to the next slide. There we go. So we're going to click through these pretty fast. So I just mentioned that this is the reception doors. Basically, the doors with the ladybugs on them are the doors that the drivers go to. You can't see it as well in this picture, but there are stop and go lights, red and green lights. The door that does not have the ladybug is that first hopper that the overhead cranes are moving materials out of those pits and into that hopper area. You can go to the next one. So there is, that's pits 3, 4, and 5. Again, it holds about 3 days worth of MSW. Our commercial and industrial comes in to a different door in the plant. It doesn't go into a pit. The picture that you see on the right are some gentlemen that are inside our trommel. It's a very large trommel. That was actually on day one. Day one, we got a mattress stuck. Mattresses are one of those things that we just can't take. It does not turn into fuel. So they were actually trying to get a mattress out of the hopper. Next one. So that material is separated. Those holes, the smaller fragments of materials fall through the holes. They become our unders. The larger materials come out as the overs. You'll see that large black trash bag. That trash bag will be ripped open by knives that are located within that trommel so that the small organic matter within that bag falls out and becomes the overs and the unders. One of the lessons that we learned is the difference between European waste and US waste. The Europeans don't use trash bags. In the US, we put trash bags inside of trash bags inside of trash bags. So once we started up, we ended up adding more knives and a shredding capability on those knives to grab more of those large bags so that we could get those open. So we are advancing our technology. We're making changes from the European design to fit the American model of waste. Next. So that is what the biooxidation hall looked like on the first waste that was dropped into it. It was nice and clean, and it was very cool in the summer to be in there. The bottom that you see there, they're called hog slats. They're the same thing that are used in farms at the entranceway to the gates of farms to keep animals from going back and forth. In our case, we use them as the ventilation cover. Underneath each one of those rows that you can see, going from left to right, is a pipe that is drawing the air. We do have the ability to switch those fans and push air in if we want to fluff our material a little bit, but 9 times out of 10, it's running to pull air out. And that's to pull odor. The entire building itself is always under negative pressure in order to keep those odors inside the building before they're emitted out through the biofilter. The next one. And this is what it looks like when it's full. As I mentioned previously, there's about 4,500 tons of MSW that can go into there. As you see in the forefront of that picture, on the left side is the overs pit. So you'll see there's a scrap of rug hanging there. That's those big materials. Those materials go directly to the primary shredder, which you can see halfway down the wall on the left-hand side. The crane is kind of hanging in front of it. That material doesn't go into the biooxidation hall because it's large. It's not going to break down in compost. So we send that directly to be fueled. On the right-hand side, the pit that you can see in the forefront, those are the unders, and those are the ones that get moved into that bio hall. Again, for 10 to 14 days until they've been stabilized and dried out. Next. So the biofilter, I mentioned it once before, but again, it's firewood size pieces down to shredded material. Every 3 to 5 years, that mulch needs to be pulled out. And that actually will be a good quality mulch that can be used. We will work with Berkeley County Solid Waste Authority in some way of giving that to the community. There is a spray system because moisture is important. The biofilter itself is just that, it's biological. The natural microorganisms in hardwood, and that's what this is filled with, it's all hardwood, has to be kept at a moist, relatively warm temperature in order for those microorganisms to continue to work. The waste itself generates heat, so the air that's coming out of the ball and pushing through that is warm enough to keep them even when it's really cold out. But you'll see there's 26 fans. That's what each one of the sort of the elbow shapes that you see are coming off of those fans. Next. This is the refinement section. This is the first half of refinement. Materials come out of the biooxidation hall, go through the first primary shredder, and are dropped onto that conveyor belt that you see that comes right through the middle of that picture. From there is where the first drop of metals takes place, the really heavy, strong ferrous metals. From there, once those are pulled out, it goes through a trommel. And that trommel is taking out the glass and the rocks and the dirt that inherently come in waste. And we, like I said, that material is used for landfill cover. And you can go to the next slide. This is the second half refinement. So this is after it has dropped out the rocks and the glass. It's gotten its first take at the metals. It's gone through air separators. So the first air separator is set up so that we drop the materials that could potentially be PVC plastics, so that it goes through that optical sorter that's right there at the front left of the picture, the red box. The next air separator, if it's what we call our super lights, that's the plastic bags and the rest of the MSW that when dried out has become very light, and that drops onto the conveyor belt that you see towards the back. Those materials are going over an eddy current, which is taking out the non-ferrous metals, the aluminum and the tin, which also goes for recycling. The picture, the box that you see, sort of the gray box on the left-hand side towards the back of the picture, that is the Lindener shredder. That is the final shredder, the secondary shredder, where we take it down to the size that's required that meets the specification of Argos cement. So we create a spec fuel that meets their requirements for things like size, BTU value, moisture, chlorine. Those are all elements that we have to have tested before they will burn that in their kiln. So it's important that we meet that specification. Otherwise, we can foul their cement. And to date, we have had no loads rejected. So that's a very good use of our fuel. This is the SRF loadout. We load with walking floor trailers. Each trailer holds about 19 to 20 tons of MSW, or I'm sorry, of SRF. And this is our bag house. It's the only other than our solid waste permit. It's the only permit that we have for an air permit. Any questions? Steve, I think you're on mute.
I was going to say, I think we have time for just one or two if anyone from the work group has a question.
I have a question.
Sure.
Actually, just curious about the tip fee, whether or not you require a put or pay contractor from the local government of the haulers, and what the daily throughput is, how many tons per day?
Our daily throughput for this facility, for
Yes.
110,000 MSW, our daily is about we can do a maximum of 300 tons a day. Right now, because we're still sort of in that startup phase and getting people to bring waste, we're at about 200 tons per day. As far as a put or pay, we do not have a put or pay. In West Virginia, the utility, the landfills in particular, of which we get regulated as one, is through the Public Service Commission. So our tip fee is regulated by them. So it's at $63. Of that, a chunk comes out for taxes, and a 50-cent per ton host fee is also included in that. As far as opportunities with municipalities to talk about how we would go forward with structuring pricing, that's all up for discussion.
I believe also, Emily, I don't know the status now, but the predominant hauler in the region was an equity investor in the plant as it was being developed. I wouldn't know now who's equity investor in it, but that, get you started, the hauler was bought in.
Yes. So in West Virginia, issue what's called a certificate of need and a certificate of hauling. They only grant certificates of need in cases where it is proven that there is a need for that technology in that area. Haulers are basically guaranteed hauling of certain counties. So Apple Valley Waste is our partner in that, and they are guaranteed, the pickup of Morgan, Jefferson, Berkeley, and Hardy counties. So that's where our waste stream comes from.
Okay.
I see Lois has her hand up too.
Okay.
Lois, you're on mute there.
And then I have a question.
She's still on mute. Okay, Lois is still muted, so I'm not sure if she's.
There, she looks like she's off now.
Okay,
Lois?
go. No. Looks unmuted, but I can't hear her.
Lois, can you hear us?
Yeah, she can, it looks like, but we can't hear her. Shoot.
While we're waiting to see if we can help Lois, I had a question. First of all, thank you so much for the presentation. Two questions. In terms of what you just described about the relationship with the haulers, you contract with them versus the local governments where they pick up the waste. Your relationship is not with the local governments.
No, we have a partnership with Berkeley County Solid Waste Authority, where we work very closely with them. Actually, they were they were very instrumental in having the facility built there. As far as what we would work with other haulers, when we have looked at opportunities in other municipalities, we are really open to any discussions. It just so happens that in West Virginia, there is, you know, your contracting has to be directly with the haulers. We can certainly work with municipalities in public-private partnerships. We can talk about different avenues to encourage haulers to participate. You know, we're open to any of those discussions. There's nothing set in stone as to how it has to work.
Okay, the other one is any regulatory issues from the federal level, EPA or other kinds of regulatory requirements you had to go through. I know you said you're considered like a landfill.
We're considered like a landfill by the state of West Virginia under the Public Service Commission, only because we bring in municipal solid waste. I'm in the middle of arguing that with the state of West Virginia because I believe that we are a manufacturing facility that happens to use waste as a feedstock. As far as the federal regulations go, we don't have any regulations necessarily over that. If we were using bringing in hazardous waste or hazardous materials, that would be different, but we don't. It's MSW and commercial and industrial non-haz. So when we received the comfort letter from the US EPA, that basically said, even to our offtake partners, that we were a valuable commodity and not considered a waste, so that those people that were using that fuel would not be considered under the commercial and industrial solid waste incineration rules. So it took us out of that. It took our fuel out of that discussion. So we really don't have any, other than having a mixed resource recovery facility permit from the state of West Virginia, an air permit, a minor source air permit, and then our public service certificate of need. That's the only regulatory oversight that we have on us.
Okay, but that would vary from state to state.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in Maryland, I would foresee that the air quality permit may be looked at a little closer than what it was in West Virginia. I believe our siting studies would probably require a more detailed environmental impact look, but we've produced those in states of New York. And if you can jump through New York's hoops, you can pretty much jump through everybody's hoops.
Okay. Thank you, Emily. I think for a matter of timing, we need to move on to the next presenter. Thank you very much. It was a very informative presentation. If there's other questions, I can stay on after we're here to answer work group questions, or we'll get questions in writing and we'll get the work group members answers.
And I certainly would invite anyone who wants to come and visit the facility in Martinsburg to take the trip out. It's a beautiful drive, and I'd be happy to show you the plant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. So we're going to turn to the second presentation, continuous materials. This is a facility, again, that I have visited and done due diligence on. It's up in the city of Philadelphia, so it's not so far away. And I'm just going to turn it over to Rick and Bridget to let them present their technology. So Rick, Bridget.
Great. Well, thank you, Steve, and hello, everyone. Nice to be with you today, and thank you for having us introduce you to continuous materials. On the line with me is Bridget Luther. Bridget's our Director of Sustainability for the company and has a lot of experience in the space. She was actually on Governor Schwarzenegger's, ran the Department of Recycling for the state of California during his administration. So Bridget brings a breadth and scope across working across all kinds of different materials and options for material. Continuous, just very quickly, I love showing this slide. Our business is making what's called a roof cover board, and I'll take you through that in detail. But basically what you see here is the largest roof that we've installed with our partners. And this roof is about 360,000 square feet. And as you can see in that roof, we recovered substantial amounts of paper and plastic that was harvested that would have went to landfill. And we've been able to convert it into a product of commerce with the building products industry and the roofing industry in particular. So next slide, please, Jennifer. We have big goals at Continuous. We are based in the waste business, but we are actually a high performance building products company. We happen to use waste streams as our feedstocks, but our market is building products. So with that, we really are looking to change the model of how to be able to use different materials to make performance products. And with that, we've got a goal of being able to divert over 500,000 tons a year in future builds of plants we'll be doing over the next 7 years to really augment not only products into the building industry, but to make an impact on basically the environment by less materials winding up in landfill. Next slide, please, Jennifer. We have got a very interesting company. We have a real product focus, and that is what we have done. We started in this industry in 2018, and we have brought in expertise from not only the waste industry, myself and Bridget. I was with Waste Management for many years in their venture capital investments, but we have partners now on our senior leadership team that are from the building products wood industry, as well as from siding with James Hardy. So from that, we've been able to move the company into a real premium space. Our product, Everboard, that we'll be talking about in more detail, is already been selected by some of the biggest producers of roofing systems as a part of their system. What we're doing is we're really winding up diverting things that went to landfill and now are totally in commerce. We've been fortunate. We've got a investment team. Part of it is Waste Management, but we've got environmental emerging infrastructure capital partners, and those principally are from a family foundation in Oklahoma, the George Kaiser Family Foundation, and West River Group out of Seattle, along with Waste Management. Waste Management is an investor. They're not an owner of the company. Matter of fact, just from a business side, they actually don't even have a board seat, but they are investors, and we do have one of our current locations is on one of their sites. West River Group, for those of you that, there's kind of two investors they've had that are big. DocuSign, if you're familiar with DocuSign, that was them. Additionally, they brought Topgolf into the being. So for the golfers out there, that's kind of the kind of things they're very visionary in where they invest, and have been with us since the company started in 2016. Next, please, Jennifer. The problem here is really, this is what you were looking at as a county. You see that despite the fact that more recycling is being done, there still is an enormous amount of material going to landfill. It still contains an awful lot of paper and plastic in it, and that ability to use those materials is key. One of the critical components of what we do is we actually, or if you can imagine, we're kind of harvesting the packaging waste out of the MSW waste stream. So things, cartons, film, single-use plastics, those are really the things we're harvesting, which are the more difficult things to have recycled at this point. So we kind of fit in that space of, we don't really like PET bottles. We don't like high density polyethylene typically, and things like papers, we can handle no problem with the things that are single use. So we know that we've got a space here to help communities, and whether it's haulers or municipalities, we are building products folks that happen to use these things as a raw material. Next, Jennifer. And please, if you have questions as I go along, feel free to interrupt, but I'll take them at the end too. again, I'm preaching to a group that's quite familiar with the stresses and strains on municipalities. But there are a lot of commitments coming from brands to help in this. So many brands now have zero waste commitments in addition to greenhouse gas emissions. You've got industry groups like the American Chemistry Council and Alliance in Plastic Waste. And there's a lot of certification yet to come on how to make sure that these are real recyclable products. We're just ahead of the game. Our product is already readily accepted and competing. So if you could please, Jennifer. Next slide. Thanks. This is kind of how we work. We bring in waste, MSW recyclables, MRF residuals. We can harvest materials from a lot of different sources. And what we're doing is we're looking to make a feedstock that's the right combination of paper and plastic. From that, we've got some more information here on our pressing, but basically what we're doing is using compression to create building products. And our first building product is an initial product called Everboard that is a high performance roofing product that we sell by the truckload to customers all over the country so far. Next slide, please, Jennifer. The reason we entered the roof coverboard business is because it's enormous. We believe that we're going to be able to compete in this market. We already are. Most of it, what we compete against is gypsum. However, a roof coverboard, I'll take you through a little bit more detail on the next slide. But what there is there's a giant market already, and every square foot of Everboard that we make contains 2 pounds of recovered paper and plastic. So you can see that this is a 1.5 billion square foot market growing, and we see a huge opportunity just in Everboard alone to launch the company, while we see other applications than versions of Everboard that can be used in other industries. It's an existing market, it's not a new market, and we're able to compete very effectively. So next slide, please. Since nobody's heard of a roof coverboard probably until today, with the exception of me and a few people on the line, if you can imagine a flat roof for warehouses, grocery stores, retail centers, on top of that roof is basically steel. There's a layer of insulation above that, and then a roof coverboard is on top of that. And the roof coverboard is there so that the roof can be used, so that you can go repair air conditioners, vents, and basically be able to operate on the roof without crushing the insulation. On top, you don't actually see a roof coverboard from the top because it's covered with basically a pool liner material, and that's the membrane at the very top. So we're in the system that is in that roof. You don't see us, but it's an important part of the roof system. It's designed to help in different areas against wind, hail, and those are the kind of things that we see real high performance of our product in. So next slide, please, Jennifer. We're designed to take real share in the marketplace for the company. Like I said, the material that is being used right now is gypsum. In your office or home, the wall behind you is made of gypsum. What they've done is there's an engineered version of it that's a little bit different for roofs, but it's very much like what's behind you. And the difference is there is a glass lined, fiberglass lining that is on top of it for fire protection. And we make basically the same product without gypsum being mined. We take it and make a combination of paper and plastic. So we've been able to meet all the performance metrics, as you see on the right-hand side, of what a roof coverboard needs to be, and you'll see that we can do it at a competitive price. I don't have to tell everybody on this call, there's lots of stories of a really great green ideas out there, but they miss two things. They typically don't have volume, and they can't meet the price that markets are at for virgin materials. We're there, and that's what really differentiates us and what we're doing. We not only can do all this, and then we add to our customers quite a sustainability story that, you know, tons of material can wind up going on their big roofs that help them to meet their landfill diversion needs, you know, as part of their sustainability goals for their company. Next slide, please. This is an example. I showed the biggest roof we've ever done, but these are the kind of places we're in. This is a big hospital system out of Dallas. We're on several parking lot roofs here and building roofs in this system. So it can be on anything that's flat that needs that protection as an operating feature. The biggest thing we are is the difference between this and what's behind you. If any of you have teenage sons, which I was so blessed with, you find out that the wall really doesn't hold up to boys throwing themselves against walls for some reason. This is much, much tougher than that. This material, the only thing that's going to break is a limb if somebody tries to punch a wall or kick a wall with something like this. This is really robust. This is really high performance. And therefore, we actually can compete with one of the few materials out there that can get a very severe hail rating in the building products industry. So this is, not only is it made out of something recovered, it is super robust in performance. It's easy to install. Installers love it. If you can imagine, this does, if it's an 8 by 10, you know, an 4 foot by 8 foot sheet like they install with and we manufacture, it's got a little give to it because of the plastic. And our installers absolutely love it because it has that give to it. So not only does it have performance, it has installation features and sustainable. So it's a great combination for us and our customers. Next slide, please, Jennifer. So how does this go to scale? We currently have 2 small plants, one in Des Moines in Iowa and one in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the one Steve has visited. We are in the process of finishing engineering to build a plant. We've already manufactured 5 million board feet across the US and installed it. The next plant we build, we have a capacity right now of about 10 to 12 million square feet. The next plant we build is going to be about 150 million square feet. So we will be building something that's at the scale with the products we compete with. That's the size you have to get to be able to supply the market in the volumes that it needs. So suffice to say, it's a big jump in scale for us. The kind of plant we're talking about would take in an MSW feedstock of about 350,000 tons and yield out about 150 million, excuse me, million square feet of product as a finished product. These are big, expensive plants. And we typically will be working on waste supply agreements that are minimum 15 to 25 years so that we can, you know, be at a spot and be able to move material. The equipment build alone is about 15 to 18 months. So, you know, it's not a small investment. A plant like this is going to cost us about $160 million to build.
You said 160, 150?
160 million.
160 million.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Next slide. One of the great things about the product, though, is it adds to our customer sustainability proposition. And that comes from a couple things. At scale, our manufacturing plant will actually be a reduction to what the carbon footprint is when we make this compared to gypsum. So that's extremely important. It's going to reduce the amount of methane emissions, and that's real. Basically, a ton of product we make and use the substrate for is about 3 tons of material that doesn't, that is basically CO2 reduction for your greenhouse gas effects. So it's not only important in what is used and it has the performance, also make a nice impact on the environment by the number of tons of greenhouse gases that never got emitted because you chose Everboard. Next slide, please. As excited as we are about Everboard, the big thing for us going forward, and why we're glad to be here with Steve and appreciate him telling you about our company. We see many other applications for this as we go forward. We believe there's applications in furniture and flooring. There's quite a business in the sides of buildings. Right now, we're only certified on top of buildings, and that, just to let you know, our product has to be certified. We're certified by Factory Mutual and Underwriters Labs. So, it's an industry that requires performance, and we've got those certifications already. So we think there's big opportunities in other avenues of very similar products for us to participate in the future as we grow. Next slide, please, Jennifer. The key thing as a company that we've done is we've got the expertise. We've brought in, as I mentioned earlier, backgrounds from waste, but also the key is in the final markets. Our VP of Operations, Alan Bradshaw, was a lifelong warehouser guy, and he saw what the difference is coming from a company based in growing trees to being able to harvest material from a waste stream. We brought in people from James Hardy, where the expertise was in making the side panels for buildings. They see applications there. So it's a really well-rounded team that has brought us to the point of becoming this really unique, sustainable product for roofs right now and more similar materials in the future. So with that, I hope that was a good introduction to see if there's any questions. I'd be glad to answer and help with, as well as Bridget.
Stacy, of course, go on.
Please.
Well, first of all, thank you for your presentation, Rick. That was really insightful, that you can create something usable from municipal solid waste. So I have a couple questions. Number one, when you talk about your feedstock, it's the plastic that's going out now. What happens to the rest of the waste?
We actually currently reject it to landfill. We are looking at some additional processing steps behind. We get about a 40% total yield on MSW feedstock. We do think that there are some other processing steps we can add to get that recovery rate higher in the future. But for right now, we basically, Stacy, if you can see this, basically, if you would see this up close, it's basically the fiber and packaging waste out of the system right now. That's kind of what we're harvesting initially.
Right. And what is your relationship with municipal entities as far as the waste, or is yours based on contracted with haulers? Yeah,
great question. Currently, our next plant will likely be at a Waste Management, the company's facility. However, we would be, we have the availability to work with municipalities directly, whatever that arrangement. What we're going to typically look for, Stacy, is we're looking for about 15 acres. So we would love to be at a transfer station, co-located at a landfill. So therefore, the business opportunities where that fits are what we'll be looking for key, that we can fit in a space very close to one of those spots.
And then you said, I thought I heard you say 350,000 tons. What period of time is that?
It would be daily. I mean, we
daily.
Would process about 1,000 tons a day. Yeah.
That's daily.
I think you just missed each other. I think it's 350,000 tons per year, Rick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say? Yes. I'm sorry.
Right. I just needed to know what time frame. Yeah. And then the other question was, you showed the listing of businesses and things. How does that play into your operation in terms of the support of the zero waste effort. I didn't quite understand that slide.
Can we go back, Jennifer, and maybe I can clear it up? Was it the one on the future things or?
The one you just passed, Jennifer. That one. Accelerating what? That one you just passed, right there.
Yeah.
Here, adoption of sustainability goals in relationship to your operation. How does that fit in with what you're doing? Well, that's just a general statement.
Yeah, we were working really closely with a lot of these brands. A couple of these brands already have our roofs on them, and they're taking the landfill diversion credit.
It's from the product side, after product,
correct.
not
correct.
Okay.
I will say this though, Stacy, the Alliance to End Plastic Waste and the American Chemistry Council, that is about helping plastic diversion and things. So, you know, we were chosen as a prototype company to work with the Alliance to End Plastic Waste through Plug and Play. So these are the companies that, you know, there's these big initiatives and they have to have answers. You know, the companies on the left for the zero waste commitments, you know, everything you read says they've all committed to recycle more than what's available. So we're seeing the questions from them. That's why they're engaging with us, because how can we make sure to get your material on our roofs so we're part of the solution to, you know, helping products that can fit this.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Great question. Sorry.
Chaz has his hand up, Jennifer.
Yes, Rick, that was a fascinating presentation, but I'm a little confused about one thing in particular.
Please.
Do you all process mixed solid waste to pull out the plastics and paper, or do you take material that's already been processed?
Well, what we do in our Philadelphia plant, we can take MSW and make it out of MSW and MRF resids. Des Moines, because of its location, we actually take carton type wastes and mixed plastics and can make it out of that there because of the location. Our future plants all have to be based on MSW because there just isn't a volume of recovered materials that makes sense. So
are you operating as a transfer station doing the processing, or?
Our Philadelphia plant is actually at a waste management plant transfer station, correct?
Okay, and you take the raw waste after it's been dumped into the bunkers and then do the processing?
Correct. They drop it on the floor, push over to us, and then we return what we don't use to them on their tip floor on the way to landfill.
Okay, and what percentage would that be that you return to them?
Well, we recover about 42% of it, ballpark, 40 to 42% is used in our product. So on that basis, the 8% goes back to them.
And I thought I heard something, but I'm not quite sure I heard it correctly. Did you say you don't want PET and HDPE bottles?
Correct. Yeah, those aren't great attractive materials for us. The melt coats don't work with our formulation. So, you know, it's kind of nice because the single use plastics that are such an issue for everybody, for us, that's gold. We love that stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the time and the introduction, and we really appreciate the opportunity to tell our story. So thank you for inviting us.
Thank you so much, Rick and Bridget.
Take care.
Okay, take care. So those are the two presentations we had as a part of the background memo. And if there weren't any other questions from the work group, we'd kind of move on. We're close to out of time, but we posed some questions for the work group to consider now to provide any immediate thoughts or guidance, or to send us their thoughts over the next week or so as we, you know, start to prepare the 5-year tactical plan. You know, the first one goes back to what I said earlier. Within the 5-year time period of the plan, the county needs to start planning for life after ESL. And we've tried to list here the various options. And so the kind of the question to the work group is, what does the work group think the county should consider in this time frame? Are any, all, none of the above? You know, kind of just your sense on where should the county be going?
And I would say it's definitely not limited to one option or recommendation going forward. But in terms of our charge, if, for example, we're going to look at expansion of ESL, in addition to, say, another disposal strategy, you know, kinds of things that we've seen, what part of that work would we need to look at? And especially coming up, because as Steve has mentioned, Mike has mentioned to us multiple times, just here in the county, it's going to take a period of time to, even if we were going to, you know, do a vertical expansion or look at another site, that's going to take 5 years. And comparing that to our existing projected remaining life of ESL, but to take that into consideration. But there are these new technologies in the industry, that some of which we've been presented with, and we are going to try to see if we can get one more in at the front end of our next meeting that was recommended to us by one of the work group members. But we need to start thinking about on the disposal side of this. You know, the front end is to divert, but those things that we can't divert on the disposal side, what is the best thinking of the group?
I think we need to look at the cost benefit of both. Ability should be a big factor. We need to, and just thinking of ESL being the least sustainable, or not ESL, Bresco, expanding that being the least sustainable option, but we just need to consider environmental cost, benefit, and then how much we can divert through these various alternative practices that are out there and factor that in, but we should look at all of them.
Okay, and that's a good point, Seth. Doing both, the cost of doing it, context of what steps we have to take immediately in order to even get there in the 5 years. So at the end of the 5 years, it would be operational. You have to take steps way up on the front end of that time frame of the 5 years. The cost associated with it, but also then the environmental impact, any of the issues, because sustainability lens, we have to look at this, and environmental impact, we have to look at it in each of the pieces that we consider. So Jennifer and GBB team, I know this goes to our whole modeling piece, the cost modeling, but we are going to have a piece on what is the environmental impact.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Other feedback in terms of the pieces that are before us, because, and we know this whole number E, developing an alternative disposal project, we've seen multiple things now. We've seen multiple innovations out there. The one challenge I had with the last one is that even the feedstock for this, the product is great, but the challenge that I see is the feedstock in terms of the multiple stream waste is only 40%. They're using only 40%. What happens to the 60%, and how is that managed? That still doesn't really resolve for us 100% of what we do with the wasted still need to dispose of.
Let me clarify a little bit, Stacy, in this respect. I've referred to a couple of times another county, Kent County, Michigan. We're doing a similar study for, actually not just a study. We have business proposals from these companies, and Continuous gave us a business proposal to accept the entire county's waste. They would include in their facility an organics module. It's not their technology, but they get a partner who at the front end, I talked about these facilities have to have a front end, took out the mixed organics, and like the technology we saw last week, would process the mixed organics over here, and then the 40% that they need, they take to their part of the plant. So there is the possibility of combining it all into one facility from one service provider from the county's perspective. They just got to get the right technology teaming partners.
I was going to say it would be a teaming opportunity.
Yes, but we have real business proposals from multiple companies to do that. Continuous being one of them.
Right, because whatever we do, we still have to consider how we procure anything. So
that's correct. But I just wanted to let you know it doesn't have to be 3 or 4 different pieces the county's got to go out and procure. I'm pretty confident we could get you one procurement that covers both organics and the paper and fiber.
So I see a few hands raised, Jennifer. I think Sarah, and I see Mr. Gersham's hands raised. So if we want to address the folks who have their hands raised. And so these are indicated there are currently no comments in the email box.
Okay.
Jennifer, this is Sarah. Will you email these questions to us after the conclusion of the meeting? Because
yes, this is already out there.
Okay. I didn't see it in the presentation, but I'll go back to the memo. Thank you.
Yeah, it's the last question, last page of the briefing.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
This is Harvey. I just wanted to point out that this list under option 1, the options under number 1, do not include pre-processing. You know, there isn't on this list anaerobic digestion process, a mixed waste processing facility. Those, you know, conceivably could come before the ultimate disposal location. That is primarily what this list is meant to provide. Steve, you agree with that?
Well, we have proposals that would include those elements, Harvey, in a combined process. But yes, there could be, like last week, we heard from Engineering Compost Systems, right? If the county wanted to set up a curbside organics collection, there would be yet a different facility that material could go to.
Yeah, my point is that
it can be a mix and match.
Yeah, there could be other facilities or infrastructure before this, you know, the non-recyclable waste needs to be dealt with.
Okay.
But that would be the how are you speaking of the diversion part of it?
Well, you know, a mixed waste processing facility could come in front of any of these, and you recover materials, you recover fuel, you know, whatever you're recovering, you make compost, you make a natural gas from anaerobic digestion, and then you have a residue, and the residue needs to go somewhere. These are, except for E, which I guess alternative disposal project is a new one.
Right.
You know, that's or an out-of-county one. These are, you know, what is left that needs to be disposed after, you know, recycling, source separation, source reduction, you know, everything that's done before. Processing. This is a list, I think, of, you know, where does the stuff that's left go?
Well,
that we can't divert. I guess
Right.
I'm trying to make the point of, after we've done everything, can divert what's
Right.
left.
If we
anaerobic
don't do a,
digestion part
yeah, if we
would
don't
be
do a lot, we'll have a lot left. If we do a lot, we'll have a little left. So that's those are the things, the places where what's left could go.
Yes. So in the briefing memo at the very beginning, we state that a premise of all today's discussion is the county's already decided what it wants to do on diversion, recycling, and if those are implemented. This is a discussion about what to do with the rest. That's why it's kind of focused on this. We've already assumed that's done.
But I think before we assume what's done, there has to be consideration of what currently exists on the diversion side, the recycling side. And as I recall, there were comments in the background document about the age of the MRF. It would be gentle to call it elderly. It does not have up-to-date equipment. It does not have the kind of robotic arms and artificial intelligence one would have at an up-to-date MRF. And I would certainly think that in anything that's considered for the budget in July, there has to be something on improving the MRF.
right. And Chaz, you're absolutely right. That is a part of the infrastructural improvements that we know some of the bond referendum money can be used, and we've talked about that. Our recommendations will cover all of those things.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying you can't overlook that aspect of it.
Correct.
I agree, Chaz. It's all interconnected, right? It's like life.
Right.
It's all interconnected. Even though there's considerations in how you set up your hauling is interconnected into this. So
Chaz, I know that Mike has lots of recommendations on things about the need for infrastructural enhancement in the aging MRF. He's talked about that on numerous occasions and has proposals in the past. So that was one of the reasons why with the referendum, that being able to make that money available to do some of that was pushed out there.
Thank you.
We'll expect that we will have a whole piece on that aging infrastructure piece with recommendations, and we do want to have recommendations associated with 2022 budget on that area. We know that is something we should do because there's resources there to do as well.
Thank you.
Okay. I wanted to, is there anything else? Anybody? We're a little past the time, but Stacey, you want to say anything before we talk about the next steps?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So we would ask for, just like last time, by close of business on Monday, if you could get back any responses. We got some responses last time to the briefing memo questions, so we can incorporate those in preparation for next meeting. Our meeting number 6, we will send materials by the 2nd of February. We meet again on the 4th, and our topic is system revenues, expenses, and financing. The meeting, we have our additional 2 following that, and I think that's it.
So any parting comments, or again, we encourage you to include in your comments responses to the questions or feedback on the briefing memo about this session, any feedback, and then any questions that you thought of or comments, so that we can incorporate it. And at the beginning of our next meeting, we will be able to at least quickly highlight those things, because we're going to talk about the financing angle to all of this work in the next meeting. Any hand, I see, I'm assuming these are hands raised from our last discussion, Chaz and Harvey.
Mhm.
Okay. Anyone else? Any comment? All right, well, again, I want to thank you for your time again today. We're just learning so much. And now we have to take all this information and begin to look at what are the what are the areas, first of all, that we need to address, and what are the viable recommendations that, especially for the interim report, which has a lot of focus on monies or funding that we would need in any of the areas to be considered for FY22 budget. And then we'll work on the larger, broader scope of recommendations. Okay. Hearing no other comments or feedback, thank you again. And we look forward to any written comments that you want to submit by Monday close of business. Have a great day and, be safe.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.